Namaste students, Kushra Vidya. I, JD and Dr. Chandrakala, Assistant Professor Jyoti Vidyapeeth, Women's University, Jaipur. In today's session, we are going to discuss about the chemical signaling between the cells. So each cell in a multicellular organism is in constant communication with its neighboring cells, and often it's with some distance, like they have the ability to cross cellular communication, which is essential for the development in animal and plant cells. Their organization into tissue controls of their growth, division, and coordination of diverse activities. Okay, so the communication between the cells may be direct or indirect. Direct communication may be from cell to cell contact through the gap junctions or through the plasma membrane in animal cells. So indirect communication is through the cell secretion which influence distantly located target cells. Okay. As you have already studied in your previous class about the protein synthesis and its regulation and different levels. Okay. So here we will discuss the strategy of chemical signaling between the cells. So here the communication between the cell is essential as it coordinates the cell differentiation and the metabolic activity of a cell in a diverse tissue and organs and up to an organization. Cells use a large variety of chemical substances and signaling mechanisms to communicate with each other. Communication between the cells may be directly or indirectly. So here cell-to-cell contact through the gap junctions and the plasma membrane bonding signals molecules that influence the target cells by making a physical contact with their cells. Okay, so indirect communication takes place through the cell secretion, so that the signal of a cell at some distance away from that of the other taking some particle activity or a particular activity here inside or the surface of a signaling or a receiving cells, okay, and also called as the target cell. The gap junctions are the region of the interacting plasma membrane of the adjacent cell or aligned to form a channel which permits the ions and the small molecules such as the amino acid, vitamins, sugar, and the nucleotide to move freely from one interacting cells to the other and the adjacent neighboring cells. Okay. So here, this is also a communicating junction here, like the cell communication through a direct interaction of a molecule's bond to the plasma membrane of a cell or through a different from that of the indirect communication in that the signaling molecules are the membrane bound. As the membrane bound molecules cannot be easily purified, the mechanism of their action is different to the study. The indirect communication is mediated by a secreted chemical, okay, signaling which interact with the specific target, okay. Nearby the which may be nearby some distance away from the body. The target cells are able to respond the signaling molecules because they have a specific proteins called the receptor that recognize and bind the external signaling molecules. Okay. So cell signaling influence the target cells either by initiating the synthesis of the new protein or by altering the properties of the rate of the synthesis of the protein existing already. The different target cells may respond differently to the same chemical signal. For example, acetylcholine stimulates the contraction of a skeletal muscles, but it decreases the contraction of the rate of the heart muscles. Okay. So here's in another example, the hormone of the thyroxine that is induced in a cell in a tail of a tadpole, which break down the release of the lysosomal enzyme in the metamorphosis. In other hand, like induce of a mitotic divisions in particular muscle cells or cardiac cells in animal change the to adult form. Okay. In plant cells, the connection of each other dielectric cytoplasmic channels which pass through the cell wall and is called plasmodesmata. The channel allows the small molecules, metabolite and ions to pass into one cell to another cell. Okay. So here the intercellular chemical signaling operator operates through the three ways. That is the local chemical mediator, hormones and neurotransmitters. Okay. So local chemical mediators are the signal molecules that are secreted by a cell into a extracellular fluid and act only on the target cell in their intermediate or immediate environment. This is because the molecules is either rapidly taken by the target cells or destroyed. Okay. Or some local chemical mediator are like neuroregulators that are released from the nerve and ending and diffused locally into the influence of a large number of cells in the immediate environment. It is thought that such type of local chemical mediator induce the sleep mechanism and which requires the suppression of a large member of a specific nerve cells in a particular region of the brain. Next is the hormone, where the chemical messengers secreted by a specific endocrine cells into the body, which can regulate the activity of the other cells. The water-soluble hormones are broken down within a minute of the entering into a blood as a local chemical mediator or a neurotransmitter. So the water-insoluble hormone persists in the blood streams and the tissue, and therefore they tend to mediate the long-lasting response. For example, the water-soluble hormones, insulin, secreted by the beta cells and the pancreas, that an increase in the blood glucose level and stimulates the secretion of insulin into a blood. Within the minute, the results in the increase in the concentration of the insulin, stimulates the liver and muscle cells to take up more glucose and blood glucose levels fall. Okay? So here the insulin is secreted and constantly the rate of the glucose uptake by the liver and the muscle cells return to the previous level. Okay, so here the blood glucose level is maintained. So the insulin also stimulates the protein synthesis in the fat cells and the lipid synthesis. Neurotransmitter are secreted by the nerve cells that forms the specialized junctions and is called as the chemical synapses and that of the target cells. They influence the neurotransmitter act only on the adjoining target cells. The neurotransmitter, if not utilized for the signaling, are either rapidly destroyed by the specific enzyme in a synaptic clip or rapidly withdrawn by the nerve terminal and that release them. They are different from the neuroregulator in that correlated on a local chemical mediator or diffuses into an extracellular fluid to influence a large number of local cells in an immediate environment. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that's secreted by the nerve ending at the neuromuscular junctions, and the synapses forms between the nerve cells and the muscular cells. It releases in a synaptic clip and stimulates the contraction of the skeletal muscles. Here the various amino acids on the neurotransmitter like glycine or an inhibitory in a central nervous system. However, some plant cells do synthesize the growth of the substances that influence the growth and differentiation of the other plants. As in plant, the plasmodesmata are the communicating link between the cells. Thank you. This session is powered by 2.0 Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. If you have any queries, please